The Treasury preparing to announce today that 10 banks can repay their TARP funds. And that news comes just as Elizabeth Warren, the chairman of the Congressional Panel overseeing the TARP, delivers her latest report on the program to Congress. Let's get to Capitol Hill and to Peter Cook, who is standing by with Elizabeth Warren. Peter?
Betty, thanks very much. I am here with Professor Warren, who oversees the Congressional Oversight Panel looking at the TARP program. Professor Warren, thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
I want to ask you about your latest report, which you're going to deliver today up on Capitol Hill. But yes. I need to ask you, first of all, about our own report here at Bloomberg this morning. Treasury's preparing to let 10 banks repay their TARP funds. First of all, do you see this as progress, or do you have concerns about it?
Well, it's progress. The big question, of course, and especially the question for oversight, is what are the terms? You know, are they really going to be free of all kinds of government assistance? And have we really checked them out to make sure they're safe? You know, you don't want them leaving every time times are good, make some profits, and then if there's trouble, they come back to the warm embrace of subsidies. So we don't want to be in that position.
Would it be your preference that if they are allowed to exit the program, repay their government shares, that they also have to show that they exit every other federal program?
Well, that really seems to be the point, isn't it? The notion that you can exit some parts of the government program because you don't like the restrictions on it, but you would still like to get a lot of special benefits, seems to me you're standing with foot in both boats at that point. I kind of think that ought to be in one vote or the other.
So, for example, this FDIC program backing their debt sales, is that one of the programs you're talking about?
You know, I think the overall principle is problematic, and I think it's something the panel continues to look at. It's the question about the terms of exit, really important here.
Yeah. Let me ask you about your own report, which, again, you're releasing today, a monthly report from this panel. You're talking in front of the Joint Economic Committee today up here on the Hill. This report focused largely on the stress test. You have concerns that the stress tests, though perhaps a help to the overall evaluation of the financial sector, may not have been tough enough. Talk to us about it.
Well, the good news about the stress test is we brought in a couple of really terrific specialists, and they tell us the modeling used in the stress test, good, solid modeling. But there's some limitations. First one, they only used a 2-year time horizon. You know, they didn't look at anything that's coming due in 2011, 2012, 2013. You've been looking at the commercial real estate market. And those mortgages that are going to come up and have to be refinanced at that point, the numbers are looking very troubling. We have them in the report. We're concerned about the fact that the negatives, worst case scenario, remember, was supposed to be 8.9% unemployment rate this year. We've already hit 9.5. Let's think about rerunning those stress tests with some tougher numbers in them. And then there's a question about robustness of the test. What this really means is the Fed didn't make the test very transparent. You can't quite see how the inner workings go in this test. And that means it can't be rerun by outsiders, people who want to validate it, maybe with slightly different numbers. What if you use a little longer time horizon? What if you change some of the economic assumptions a little bit? So what we'd like to see, more transparency, more information, so you can really see how solid those tests are.
Are you satisfied that you're seeing that kind of cooperation from the Treasury? It is, of course, your panel's job to keep dogging this, the government.
We stay after the Treasury. I will say in this case, you remember this was a joint effort by the Treasury and the Fed. And the Treasury has been really forthcoming on this. We've had a little more trouble getting information from the Fed. They're not of the mindset for sharing, and so it's been a little bit more of a struggle, but I think we've moved in the right direction. At least I hope so. We're staying after them.
This does play, again, back to our story today about these banks being allowed to repay their money.
It does.
Does this convince you that perhaps these banks are not out of the woods yet, that this is too early for them to be able to repay?
I want to say it slightly differently. I would feel better if a little more robust stress test were run against these banks before they exited the program. Let's take a tougher look, and let's take a look under a little more adverse circumstances and see if the projections are as strong as the banks say.
Let me ask you one other aspect of this. That's the warrants the government holds as well. It's been a big question here on the Hill. I'm wondering to what extent the Oversight Panel has addressed this issue. What is your own thought about what should happen to those warrants? Should they be held for taxpayers?
You know, this is what news is about, right? All the time. That's our next report. We're working on warrants. We're working on the recycling question. When the money comes back in, can the money leave again? So the best I can say on this one is we're on it. We've got people working on it now, and stay tuned. That's where the next report will be.
All right, you have a monthly report. I want to get your sense, because we've asked you this before. Do you believe at this point that this program has been effective and is important?
No, effective is a tough one. I think the signs are still mixed. But the the clear point to say is there are signs that some parts have gotten better. Look, the economy is doing better, the markets are doing better. I always continue to worry about the real economy. Unemployment up, foreclosures are continuing to rise. Ultimately, this is about how 117 million American households are doing, and those signs are not strong yet.
Professor Warren, we appreciate you joining us here on the Hill, testifying this morning.